is a special presentation of HBO Sports.
He's a tragic figure, clearly. Someone who reached for the sky above from the mud below, but really couldn't handle it when he got there.
I mean, this guy really brought an aura of destruction and an aura of menace into the gym and into the ring. I mean, he literally had to leave 3 cities because he was hounded out of those cities by the police.
This guy comes from prison, he has these ties with organized crime, and he doesn't seem as though he's interested in uplift. He doesn't seem as though he's interested in wanting to make himself better.
There were rumors about this fight being a fixed fight. Could the fight have been fixed? You could make a very real case for that.
Sonny's death remains a mystery. His wife went into the master bedroom and there was Sonny, dead. Blood leaking from his nose, had obviously been dead for some time.
Sonny Liston once said, someday they're going to write a blues song just for fighters. It'll be for slow guitar, soft trumpet, and a bell. Well, he was born on a tenant farm outside of Forest City, Arkansas. And incredibly, he was the 24th of 25 kids. Every day he said he got whooped by his dad. In fact, many years later, when he finally drifted into Johnny Taco's gym in St. Louis, Johnny Taco looked at his back and he said, "What are those bird tracks on your back? What are those welts from?" And Sonny said, "I had bad dealings with my father."
I used to ask him how old he was, and he told me that when he was born, they made a mark on a tree, and somebody chopped the tree down, so he really didn't have any idea.
He wasn't really sure when he was born. There was no birth certificate. It was the sense of growing up lost in a family, lacking self-esteem, which he craved all of his life. Thought he would get it when he won the heavyweight championship of the world, but in fact never got it.
His hike up here and down south. His mother came up here first, and he had a sister and everything. They were here. And I think when he was 12 years old, I think he said he hitchhiked up here. He didn't even know where his mother was.
He said he was in school. They were smaller kids, and they would make fun of him because he was so big, in the same grade. And he said he had to stop going to school almost because they would ride him and joke him. So to keep from hurting him or nothing, he said he just stopped going to school.
He eventually started playing hooky and dropping out and not going to class, and his formal education didn't get very far.
He never learned to read, never learned to write. You know, he eventually got into robbery and, stealing $6 from this guy and $9 from this guy and just roughing people up generally.
From minor things all the way to armed robbery. And he eventually went to prison in Missouri for armed robbery.
After Sonny went to prison, a Catholic priest, Father Stevens, talked him into go out for boxing. And then after Sonny won the championship of the prison very easily, Father Stevens was so impressed. First he got Sonny a parole, and then later on he arranged for him to introduce him into professional fighting and got him some managers.
He won the Golden Gloves here, and he went to the national championships where he had 3 fights. None lasted more than 3 minutes. So what do you do with him then? You got to turn him pro. There's no point keeping him an amateur. So we did.
First thing his managers had to do was arrange for him to get a birth certificate, which claimed he was born on May 8, 1932. We know now from his early arrest records that he was born in either 1927 or 1928. In truth, it looked like Sonny was really 4 or 5 years older than his listed age throughout his whole career.
We got working, and I got a couple of sparring partners. It was hard to get anybody to spar with him because the guy had hands like hams, you know. They had to have special gloves made to work with and everything else.
After Sonny turned pro, it wasn't long before the mob, which controlled boxing, began to notice him. Not too long later, they took over control. He became a mob fighter.
Sonny Liston first got out of the prison in the early 50s, and at that time he was taken over by the top mobster in St. Louis, Johnny Vitale. Vitale ran the rackets there in St. Louis.
Vitale also had a construction business, and he ended up as a strike breaker for Vitale, a head cracker in St. Louis.
Laborers got out of line. Sonny was the guy that roughed them up. He would collect money for loan sharks and numbers writers. He was the typical bully who used his size to earn money, whether it was in the ring or out.
And they said that he was hooked up with the mob, he was this and that. But to me, if he was hooked up with the mob, we sure were poor.
He was one of the nicest guys you ever wanted to see when he wasn't drinking. But when he got his little drink in him, he had a problem.
In 1956, in a brawl with a police officer, the cop wound up with a broken knee, and Sonny managed to run off with the cop's gun and a cap.
Him and the cop got into it, and the cop called him a black-ass nigger. He pushed the cop, and then he took the cop's gun, and he got 7 months for it.
And I didn't get him that night, but we got him a couple of nights later. Of course, I took him in the alley and talked to him, talked his language, and he understood what I meant. Nobody wanted to get killed. Nobody wanted to get the head caved in. I said, that's what's going to happen if you keep fucking around here.
After that breaking that policeman's knee, Sonny was picked up and put back in the workhouse. And then after his release, he wound up in another fight with a policeman, wound up putting him upside down in a trash barrel. But now the police was tired of arresting him, and they just told him, get out of town or else.
Sonny was forced to move to Philadelphia, where his contract was given over by Vitale to Frankie Carbo, a known hoodlum, and his associate, Blinky Palermo, another known hoodlum.
We know that as of December 1960, Sonny Liston was controlled by 2 powerful racketeer groups. One situated in St. Louis under the leadership of John Vitale, a notorious union racketeer, and the other controlled by Frank Carbo and Frank Palermo.
He was managed finally, I think, as a front by a guy named Joseph Pep Barone, who was a friend of Palermo's.
It was after he moved to Philadelphia that Sonny really became a force in boxing. He had a tremendous left jab and a great hook. And he just started beating up on people like Zora Foley and Cleveland Williams and Eddie Mason. He just destroyed people.
Well, from the outset, I'd say that Sonny Liston belongs among the 5 greatest heavyweights of all time. He had a left jab in front of him, which was probably the best in all heavyweight history. Had the kind of a jab that went through you.
Now, here's a guy who came into the gym and would hit the speed bag so hard that it would come off its hinges.
He knocked the stuffing out of the headgear. I mean, this guy could really hit. The stitching on the headgear, when he hit you, it came apart.
I think it's fair to say that he was considered like a Joe Louis, like a Mike Tyson, or even in the way that George Foreman was considered early in his career as this absolutely fearsome, unbeatable force of nature.
This was the toughest guy on the planet. He literally hammered out danger. And when Sonny Liston came into the ring scowling at you, the guy started bleeding during the national anthem.